Welcome to today's presentation, Ask CAPTRUST, Managing and Reducing Financial Stress, brought to you by CAPTRUST at Work, the independent financial advisory firm that works with your employer-sponsored retirement plan. As an added benefit, you will also have access to financial advisors who will give you unbiased, customized investment advice. I would now like to introduce Deborah Gates, Manager, CAPTRUST Financial Wellness and Advice Team. Go ahead, Deborah.
Thank you so much, Lucy. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today to talk to you about this topic that we're going to speak about today. You know, this is usual for those of you who've listened to our webinars before. I will not be reading through these disclaimers. However, you know, I do want to amplify the fact that this presentation is being given for informational purposes only. So if you have questions about your personal situation, your personal finances, I strongly encourage you to reach out to our at work desk. Please know that CAPTRUST is available to help you with your financial wellness. They're available to help you with investment advice, but we do not offer any legal, accounting, or tax advice. So without any further ado, I want to get into our presentation, and I have a special guest with me today, and his name is Chris Widlow. So Chris joined CAPTRUST in 2022. I'm not going to read everything that's on his bio because we would be here for the entire 45 minutes, but know that he is he's a friend of mine, and he's a credible guest today. So anyway, Chris joined CAPTRUST in 2022 as a senior director of CAPTRUST at Work. He brings more than two decades of experience in the industry. He focuses on strategic planning and oversight of the CAPTRUST at Work practice, especially as it pertains to technology, educational content, and growth initiatives. Outside of work, Chris likes pickleball, he plays golf, he likes to spend time with his wife and his 2 children. Welcome, Chris. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Deborah, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm excited to talk about this topic and share with people everything I know.
Wonderful. You know, I think we're just going to jump right into it. I do want to say that, you know, the intention of this webinar that we're going to do today, it is not an end-all be-all. We cannot answer all of the questions. We don't have all of the solutions for you here today, but we do want to create, we want you to create an awareness. So, you know, just to help you move forward. So you're going to hear some hard truths today. I remember my parents would always say, you know what? Take a harsh reality over a blind innocence any day. At least you'll know what you need to do and how you need to get there. So we're going to talk about some of those things today. But the first thing I want to start this off with, we're talking about financial stress. And Chris, I know you're really very passionate about this subject. And so when I look at financial stress, I think about it as being, you don't have enough money to take care of your needs. Whatever your individual bills are, you don't have enough to cover your mortgage or to cover your rent, or you're from paycheck to paycheck. You know, you're running out of money before you run out of month. So tell me, what do you think about financial stress? How have you experienced financial stress?
Yeah, I think I like to simplify financial stress down to its most simplest form, which is when we don't know about something that has to do with our finances, when an unknown exists, and we don't have the capability or the ability to build confidence around that, we're gonna experience financial stress. And honestly, that's any stress for that matter that we have. It's the fear of the unknown that I think really drives us, and it goes back to all the topics that you just mentioned. Whether it's not having enough money, you know, having more months than the money, managing the day-to-day. Each and every single one of us, I believe, experiences that at some point.
Yeah, we're going to talk about this as we go through this and talking about this financial stress. That, you know, what I can say is that no one has immunity to financial stress. Uh, People handle it different. People believe differently, but financial stress hits everybody at some point in time. And so as I did my research and I was looking at all this, I saw that the American Psychological Association said that 72% of Americans reported feeling stressed about money some of the time. What do you say to that?
I think 28% of people are lying. Like they're not thinking about it right. I mean, I think with financial stress, it doesn't matter if you're young or you're old. It doesn't matter if you have a lot of money or if you don't have a lot of money, if you're highly educated or you don't have a lot of financial literacy. Financial stress is impacting you at some point or another. And if it's taking up space in your life, if it's taking up time away from your ability to do other things that are enjoyable, then you're experiencing financial stress. And there's ways to mitigate that.
Absolutely. And I think that's the issue, that people don't realize that they have financial stress because you look at this definition, and if you don't fit this definition that you think it is, then you don't think that you have any type of financial stress. So let's follow up with some of the triggers. What are some of the triggers that people know? And I really want to talk about this as a broad base, and then I want to kind of hone in a little bit more when we're looking at the individuals that we spoke to.
Yeah, I think if you go through this list, and I'm not going to go through them all, I think you can read through the things that sound tragic in some way or sound disconcerting. But I think it's important to remember that there's times of joy, or there's times of happiness where you can be overwhelmed with financial stress. You know, you're planning for retirement and you don't have a gap, right? But you're trying to figure out how to navigate. That's not going to be everyone's situation, but those folks are actually indeed experiencing financial stress. But the more important ones that we know is where, you know, you're dealing with a lot of these economic and day-to-day issues. And oftentimes it boils back down to what I just mentioned earlier. It's the fear of the unknown. I don't know something, and so that unknown is causing me to have stress or anxiety about some aspect of my finances.
Yeah. And so tell me about, let's say that, well, let me ask it this way. Does where you are in your career have any effect? Is there any correlation or any relationship with that, with financial stress and where you are in your career?
Well, I think going back, you know, young, old, like somewhere in the middle, we're all dealing with it slightly differently. Perhaps in the earlier stages, it might be getting our first apartment, trying to figure out credit. Maybe we need transportation. We have a lot of anxiety about starting our first job and understanding, you know, how to read the pay stub and where are all those taxes going. Do I enroll in my 401k plan or other benefit plans, retirement plans, 403b plans, etc.? What types of healthcare should I be selecting from the insurances that are going to protect me? So that early stage is really all about figuring things out. And then when you move to the middle stage, it's all about balance, right? A lot of people are figuring out their families. Maybe they're in their second or third career. Perhaps they're purchasing a home, or they've owned a home and they're having to deal with maintenance on that. And they're starting to think about the long term. So how do I balance that during my mid-career and deal with all of the stuff that's coming that you know, it's unforeseen and unexpected? And then later in our career, we have the challenge of figuring out how to bring it all to close with dignity and something that, you know, represents what we thought we could have. And oftentimes you're facing the realities that perhaps you didn't have enough, or perhaps there's a situation where your parents are aging and you're having to deal with those aging parents. So there's a lot of different things that happen throughout the stages that might look like financial stress that you can prepare your minds for and sit down and think about, that can help alleviate some of your concerns.
Yeah, so I want to go back and kind of talk about the genesis of this and how we came up with this word cloud. So when we sent out the invitation, as most of you know, when we sent out the registration, we sent out 2 questions. And one of the questions was, how does financial stress impact other areas of your life, such as your health, your relationships, or your job performance? And so we really wanted to hone in on those 2 questions, which is one of the reasons why we're not taking questions, because we're really letting those questions inform this presentation, because you let us know what you wanted to talk about. And so as a result of those questions, this is what came to the surface. This is what popped up to the surface. The one that really stands out for me is relationship. And so reading several of the comments, Chris, going through them and seeing, relationships and both the spouse they're not on the same page, or how it's affecting the family, or how it's affecting kids. So tell me about, what do you see and what do you think about this word cloud?
Well, when I look at the word cloud, it's pretty heavy, right? In terms of realizing that a lot of people are struggling with a lot of different issues. And in particular, the relationship ones is near and dear to my heart, because I've been in a 21-year relationship where, we've dealt with some financial stress, certainly. And you're absolutely right. I mean, it's all about trying to figure out how to get on the same page. The way I think about it is that if one person's going in one direction and their goals and ambitions are going here, and you're going in an opposite direction, you're not heading towards the same space. So you have to get parallel to one another, right? And that's that sitting down and making sure that your goals and objectives are aligned. But it's clear, looking through this list of the real words that people responded back to, that this is a tough subject. We're all struggling with this. We're in it together, and it can affect the way that we live our day-to-day lives.
Yeah, and so with these, we didn't have any prompter. This wasn't multiple choice. This was a straight question, and so these were answers and concerns that you had. And the other one that stands out for me is health, and how financial stress affects your health. I mean, here again, doing some research, and some of the results that I found there, I mean, it was staggering that nearly 1 in 5 Americans say that they have either considered skipping or skipped going to the doctor because of financial concerns.
That's 20%, Deborah. Like, unbelievable. And that doesn't include people who aren't taking medication because they don't think they can afford the medication. It doesn't include the folks who aren't selecting the right health insurance plan because they don't believe they can afford the right health insurance plan. They're not making the right preparations for their long-term care, or maybe their short-term needs. Perhaps they're putting off their ability to eat healthy or to exercise. And so this is just a sliver of what the reality is, which is why when you showed the word cloud, I think health was such a big one. It's such a big impact to people's lives. And it's an important one because it's the one that gives us joy and longevity in our life.
Absolutely.
That we got to get in front of.
Absolutely. And then not going to the doctor and not knowing, what does that lead to? That leads to hypertension, diabetes, heart issues. I mean, tell me about this. I mean, it's about early detection, trying to get on the front end of all of these things that happen.
Yeah, if you think about some of the older folks who might have written in and they've expressed some of the things that they're experiencing, I think this can be a wake-up call for those who are watching that might be younger, who have an opportunity to get ahead of this, to think more about it and think about the impacts, and to know that you can't go day to day to day experiencing financial stress, that at some point in time you've got to face the issue, which goes back to the definition of building confidence around the unknown, right? And so that, as you see there in the last one, early detection and management is the key to prevention. It kind of all culminates together that we need to really go out and experience the unknown. And there's a lot of ways, I think, to do that. I think that's probably, what the audience is thinking about. But certainly there's some challenges here that impact the financial or the physical health of individuals.
Yeah, and as you can see, studies have shown how it affects, of course, like you said earlier, Chris, any type of stress. And then sometimes we just need to take the air out of the bubble. Sometimes we make things bigger, when it's the unknown, you think the very worst, and maybe it's not as bad as you think it is. So take some of the air and kind of deflate it a little bit. These are more results. So, about 60%, there are about 1,500 people on this call that registered for the call. And the response is about 60% of the people respond. But what really stands out here is health, results from the questions. Does any of this surprise you? Like I said, these were things that we did not ask about. These were questions and answers that they gave us.
Yeah, so health is more than 50%, right? And the other ones are kind of related or associated with that. So I wonder if they were more descriptive, what other categories we would have if we didn't lump everything kind of into health. But I think overall we think about our general health and how we feel and our well-being, and it's all tied together. And financial stress, it just happens to be one of those that it's the leading cause of physical health problems. It's the leading cause of relationship and marital problems. Right, it's the leading cause of in terms of depression and things like that, and it's definitely plays into a big part, and it creates a lot of apathy, right? And that apathy is that when I'm stressed, when I'm struggling, and I don't have a place to turn, maybe I don't have a confidant to speak with, or maybe I don't have a professional that I can work with. I'm kind of struggling in silence, and I'm dealing with these issues, and I think they cascade into themselves. And so you really have to be mindful of those who are experiencing these things, how maybe you can start to stop this. And for those who have time before they get to this side of it, they can do the prevention. They can start thinking about, how can I get ahead of it? It's a key importance, I think, in order to maximize your happiness in life.
Yeah. So all of this, this is really heavy stuff. I told you at the very beginning, there was some hard truths. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we're seeing. That's the data. That's what you're feeling. But let's kind of move to some hopefulness. And so I think it's going to take, you kind of choose your heart. So am I going to continue to be in debt, or am I going to do this hard thing of budgeting? Because budgeting, unless it's just something that you love to do, I don't think people wake up in the morning and say, I think I'll budget this morning. Talk about that. So let's look at some strategies to manage that, and how to get out of this. You have to start somewhere.
I think many people, at least the ones that I speak to or have spoken to over the 20 plus years of my career, we all want the silver bullet that just makes it easy and makes things go away. And whether it's trying to, to lose weight or exercise, this is just one of those things where it's so personal to you. It's so ingrained into your individual circumstances that there isn't an easy button that solves this. Now, there are easier ways. There are easier ways to do things, certainly, and we can talk about those. But it all begins with the number one, which is budget effectively, prioritize savings. I don't really like that term personally, because I think that's more specific. It's more about the planning and uncovering the unknown. And that's why I want to simplify it for everyone. Okay. At the end of the day, you have financial stress because there is something that is bothering you that you don't know about, and you need to uncover the unknown. You got to peel the onion back a little bit And that doesn't mean that it's going to solve the problem for you. It doesn't mean that once you do the planning, or once you do the budgeting, or once you do the calculations, the discovering, that you're going to have the perfect roadmap to success. Oftentimes when you budget, you realize you got a long way to go. But it's the fact that you have the knowledge and the game plan that gives you visibility in the world in order to help start solving your problems, that alleviates the stress and allows you to start focusing on other things. And when you don't have the visibility, you have this myopic viewpoint of the problem that is probably vastly different than what the reality is. And so whether it's health or whether it's wealth, you have to go uncover the unknown, and then you have to engage in education and start to tailor strategies around your plan to, around your situation in order to plan effectively to get out of it. It could take years, right? It could take, in some cases, you may never get there. In some cases, the goal may be beyond what you're capable of reaching. But now you can optimize your situation based on what you do know versus sitting in the unknown with the worry, the regret, maybe the fact that you're putting it off in a way. And I think that that's the key piece that I want folks to take away from this is the silver bullet is to truly sit down, understand where that financial stress is coming from, and then do the difficult work behind understanding really what it is. If it's retirement planning, it's figuring out what my gap is. If it's budgeting, it's sitting down with my partner or my spouse and getting the budget done and understanding how far apart we are. All of those things are going to help to blossom the conversation and open your eyes to the world to identify the areas that you can start to make improvements, which will allow you to focus on other things.
That's something really key that you said there, Chris, about improvements. You have to stop. You can't stay in this place of beating yourself up for past decisions.
Yeah.
Because the past decisions that you made, that was the capacity that you had. If you had to do it all over again and you had the same mindset, you would do the same thing. So let's get past what you did in your past. So don't live your life. I heard someone say, don't live your life trying to go forward, continuing to look in the rearview mirror. So yeah, you've got to go forward. You've got to move forward. And one way to do that is mindfulness. And it's really it's a technique to really reduce the stress and to really stay in the moment. And this is where you're going to have to deal with that. If it is in fact a harsh reality, you just have to deal with it. You have to just say, I'm just going to look at it because I really need to know what you don't know. You need to know where you are and where you are in your finances. And if it's in a negative, at least then maybe you can improve it. And the next month that you do the budgeting, maybe you don't have as many reds, or maybe you made this payment. At least you made, it's like a little baby steps, small steps that you're trying to make.
You're absolutely right, Deborah. I mean, one of the things that I've done in my life that has been effective is combining journaling with mindfulness and meditation. And what I found is that if I sit down and I'm quiet with myself and I'm trying to quiet my mind, if I haven't gone through the work of journaling ahead of time, then my mind is wandering around all of the anxiety and the stress that I'm feeling. But if I can sit down and write down, for instance, all the things that are bothering me today, what are the things that are making me angry right now? What are the things I'm really struggling with? And then the second point, I write down, what are all the things I need to do today? What are the things that I got to get accomplished that are outstanding? When I put those two things together and then I sit down and practice mindfulness, it gives me a lot more clarity to be focused on the things that are truly important and allows my mind to be a lot more focused on where I want to go. There's some other techniques though that I think are important. A lot of times, whether it's exercising or budgeting. You know, people just don't want to do these things because, one, they don't have the habit. And a lot of things that are habit forming tend to be things that you enjoy doing, right? And you have to do it for a certain period of time in order for it to become a habit. But there was a book recently by Mike Norton that was written called The Ritual Effect. And in it, he talks about converting habits into rituals so that you really ground the ritual into your life. It becomes more meaningful and purposeful for your life so that there is enthusiasm for things that you don't particularly care to do. So one of the things that my family does to focus on, you know, budgeting and being entertained is that we created something called Family First Fridays. And so it's the first Friday of every month. Our family gets together. I try to leave work a little bit early. And we rotate the ability of each family member to be able to pick out a board game that we're going to play that they like. And then we alternate for someone else to pick a movie that we're going to watch. You know, these are already on the streaming things we have. These are board games that we already have. We're not going out and spending a lot of money. And then together as a family, we go through the kitchen and we make dinner together. And so it's a family where there's no tech, you know, it's a Friday where there's no technology device. Everything is put away and we're focusing primarily on each other, not spending any money and enjoying each other's company. And then we spend the month talking about what we're going to do next time. Now, that could be something that people don't enjoy, but because we're doing it together, it becomes a ritual within our family. Another ritual that we do is that my wife and I, on the first of every month, sit down and we do a net worth statement together. And what that means is that we go through our budget and we do our budgets and come together and talk about it. But we want to benchmark where we're at and how we've grown to reach those goals that we talked about. Having people that are moving in parallel towards the same goals helps you have that open communication so that your relationships are on the same track. And look, I could invite any of you to these meetings that I have with my wife, and they're not always pretty. I don't want to create the thing that this is like a perfect, you know, situation. Right. It can get challenging, but we dedicate each other through the month to make sure that that's the day that we're going to have the conversation, and we're going to celebrate the joys that we're doing towards our goals. And that's what makes it important and fun. It becomes a ritual that we've been doing that you combine together. And so it forces budgeting upon us as part of the family unit. So those are examples of things that you can do to plan and adjust accordingly and to kind of create rituals. And then the last one here is really seek professional advice when necessary. If you don't have a lot of financial literacy, if this isn't your subject, if you're really struggling, then it's key for you to go out and find a professional that can help you navigate those areas. I'm very lucky in the sense that this is what I do for a living, so it's a lot easier, and I recognize that. But you know, maybe it's not just on the financial topic. If you're struggling in marriage, if you're struggling in other things, I mean, there are other experts out there that can help you bring these two things together that you may need to leverage in order to help yourself out of a situation.
But here's the key thing, you know, I'm going to say this now, and you know I say it all the time, and I'm going to say it at the end. You know, you're on this call, you're registered, you have access to a professional. You can call the Ad Work Advice Desk. I'll give you the number and the website at the end where you can schedule an appointment. And I'm telling you, it is it's unbiased. It's a no judgment call that you can call and speak about your finances, and not just about retirement. We don't handle any relationship problems, but we will help you with making your decisions on how to save and how to budget. And we'll go through those budgeting exercises with you. We can send you something that you can fill in, so we can help you with that. If you need help with debt management or credit management, I mean, it's all things financial. And it's great that you have an employer that offers that through At Work with CAPTRUST. So please take advantage of that service because it's a value add and there's no charge. The only thing we need is you need your name, your email address, and a phone number. And then we'll make the call to you. All you have to do is answer the phone, and then we'll take it from there. The other thing I want to go back to the data that we had, some of the results from the questions. The other question we had was, what are the particular financial goals or challenges that you feel are overwhelming or which have become unmanageable for you to pursue? And so we see that the biggest one is retiring. People are thinking about their future, and that's a prime time for you to call us at work.
Yeah, I think what's key here is that when you look at the top down, you know, all the way down to inflation, maybe home purchase, because I know with interest rates as high as they are right now, it's really put home purchasing out of the reach for a lot of folks. But a lot of the things at the very top are things that we control in the sense of planning, right? We control in the sense of understanding and gaining the knowledge. Like I said earlier, it doesn't mean you're going to have the solution. It doesn't mean that, you know, you want to retire with X amount of dollars and on your income you can easily reach that. There are hard choices to make in life, no doubt, but at least sitting down and doing the work with the planning, it almost encompasses like the top half of all of these financial stresses. And it's not to say that the other financial stresses like income, low income and inflation and student loan debt, things like that aren't challenges. They certainly are challenges, and we can certainly help talk through those things. But I think retiring, planning, managing debt, budgeting for expenses, maintenance, and home purchase, I mean, those are things that you can actually have a real conversation around planning. And if inflation truly is the thing that's bothering you the most, believe it or not, there are planning and strategy things that you can do around protecting against inflation if that is something that's a huge concern of yours. But I think it all ties back to what you just said earlier, Deborah, which is you have a resource, you have a professional that you do have access to. It may feel uncomfortable or foreign to you if you've never done it before, but take the chance, take the risk, reach out and have that conversation, and it is going to be it's going to be an empathetic, non-judgment conversation that it's unbiased and is going to be specifically tailored towards your needs.
Right. I mean, and it's not a one and done. It's not like you
Right.
have to talk and, you know, they're 30-minute increments and you have to talk and tell everything. Then it might be building that relationship. And so it might necessitate another call that maybe you need to gather some information, or maybe you need to do one little step and then you go to the next step. And which I want to talk about is looking at what are the steps that we can take to alleviate this financial stress. But you know, the thing that we really want to impress upon you is that you've got to do something. You've got to move.
Yeah, well, you know, oftentimes I go back to apathy and I say, you know, when people are deer in the headlights, right? I have a lot of stress, I have a lot of anxiety, I don't want to do anything, it hurts to move. What they don't realize is that apathy, that indecision is really a decision, right, to do nothing. And so you may think you're not making a decision, but you're actually actively making a decision not to do anything. And the longer you wait, the more likely that the financial stress can have an impact on your health. You know, and if you're going to take anything away from how financial stress impacts, those were real world, real people. They're on the call with you right now. They're listening to this. They're going to watch this just like you are. They're struggling with those things in their lives. They're trying to figure out how to navigate around them. And for a lot of people who are on the call, they have the ability to turn that around before it ever happens. And so there's a recipe here, I think, in order to put that at bay, and that's develop a plan, update it annually. If you don't have somebody, we have somebody that you can speak with. If you're looking just for basic resources, start there. You can always start small and build on it later. It doesn't have to be all in the first time. So as Deborah said, it can take time over time. The second thing is that because you're on this call, what that means is that your employer truly values your well-being. And there's likely other well-being type programs that your employer offers that you can leverage. Things like an EAP program, an employee assistance program that has lots of different ways in order to help mediate or mitigate the things that you could be struggling with financial stress or even personal stress through therapy. You have health plans. You have other financial benefits that your employer likely offers. And so the great thing about the employer offering these is that they're leveraging their economies of scale in order to provide you a benefit that you would probably otherwise not be able to afford or have access to as readily as they can provide it for you. And so I implore you to please reach out and find out what options you have and use those benefits to your best use and very, very much leverage those if you can. And then for those who have very complex financial situations, and I think that's one thing that we need to emphasize when we talk about CAPTRUST at Work. CAPTRUST at Work is for everybody, right? So if you're a brand new employee and just now starting out, we're for you. And if you're a senior executive who's got a lot of complex financial issues and you're trying to understand things, we're for you as well. We kind of look at your situation and we match it with, do you need guidance? Do you need advice? Maybe you need advice particularly on investments around your retirement plan or how to save. Perhaps you need to do a gap analysis. Do you need to start thinking about planning, right? And when I talked about guidance earlier, just to clarify, that could be budgeting, student loans, debt. Do I need guidance on a subject in order to get pushed and directed in a certain place? All the way up to, do I have very complex financial needs that are providing stress for me? Am I trying to figure out something that is very difficult? We have complex, knowledgeable CFPs and wealth advisors who can help, that can answer those questions, all from a fiduciary capacity where we don't have any products to sell. We're not trying to influence you in any way. It purely is personalized advice and guidance that is for you. Leverage that if you need it.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Chris. I just want to let people know that we are here we're here for you, and we want to meet you where you are, but we don't want to leave you there. We want to elevate you and take you to the next level. And those levels, we're not looking at how much of a level, or if you're going from one step or two steps. We just want to take you to a place, take you by your hand, and take you from the spot that you're in to the next spot. I'm going to put our telephone number there, our hours of operation. You can go online. You can go to captrustedwork.com. You can schedule an appointment, which would be convenient for you at the times that are available. But Chris, I like to do a rapid round. So tell me, what are your closing thoughts? What do you want to leave our audience with today?
Well, one tip I'll give is that when you go to captrustedwork.com and you schedule an appointment, there's a box that you can fill out that says, what type of conversation do you have? I'm paraphrasing, it probably says something completely different than that. But you want to make sure that you put into that box the things that you're struggling with that you'd like to start to have a conversation around. And that helps us to navigate you to the most appropriate area for your help. But I want people to walk away with a couple of things. One is, you're not alone. If someone has financial stress and they're raising their hand first, I'm the first one. I have financial stress, and I admit it, and I have it all the time. Someone who knows a lot about financial stress, someone who knows a lot about finances. And I think it's just a natural thing that we worry about our families, we worry about ourselves, we worry about our situations, we certainly worry about the things that are unknown. So when you have financial stress, when you have stress in other areas of your life, know this: the most simplistic way of solving for that is peeling the onion back, sitting down with whomever and writing down, discovering, educating yourself, and continuously educating yourself and optimizing for your situation. That's the key. It may not have a solution for it right away, but you'll be really surprised at when your eyes are open to what the challenge really is, how the world can start to help you solve that through things you've never even seen before. Perhaps you've done the planning, and it might be around some particular subject, and you've maybe passed a billboard every day on your way to work and just ignored it because it had nothing to do with your life at that moment in time. But now that you've gone through the planning and you understand the situation at hand, you may visibly now take that in and see it, and it might be useful to your life. That could be the same thing with a relationship that you have where someone could provide help, or a topic that might be happening like this one that might come across your desk that you may want to join and learn more about. So opening your eyes to the situation, I think, will vastly improve the stress around the problem. And then ideally putting that plan in place and working it is going to help alleviate all of the other ailments that you have.
Wow. I could talk to you for another hour, but we have to go. And
We gotta go.
We gotta go. We gotta go. We can't stay any longer. Thank you so much for all of that invaluable information. Just know this session is being recorded, like we said earlier, and you should receive it in about 1 to 2 business days, and you'll get the copy of the recording and refer back to it, listen to it again. I hope that we have given you a ray of light, a ray of hope. And so thank you very much for joining us. And so have a great day. Stay safe.
Thank you, everyone.